Have you ever planted two healthy vegetables side by side, only to watch one of them struggle, stop growing, or become covered in pests? It might seem like bad luck. Maybe you blame the weather, the soil, or even the seeds. But what if the real problem was simply the neighbor growing right next to it? In gardening, some vegetables are best friends. They help each other grow stronger, keep pests away, and even improve flavor. But others are complete enemies. Plant them together, and they compete for nutrients, attract the same diseases, invite destructive insects, or quietly stunt each other's growth. The worst part? Many of these bad combinations are surprisingly common in home gardens across America. Today, we're counting down 15 vegetables you should never grow together, explaining exactly why they don't get along, and what you should plant instead. Some of these mistakes could be costing you half your harvest without you even realizing it. Let's get started. Companion planting has been used by gardeners for hundreds of years. When done correctly, it can naturally reduce pests, improve pollination, and help vegetables grow healthier without relying heavily on chemicals. But companion planting isn't just about choosing good neighbors, it's also about avoiding bad ones. Every plant competes for sunlight, water, nutrients, and space. Some release natural chemicals into the soil. Others attract insects or diseases that spread quickly to nearby plants. Understanding these relationships is one of the easiest ways to grow a healthier, more productive vegetable garden. So, before you plant your next raised bed or backyard garden, make sure you're not making one of these common companion planting mistakes. Let's begin with number 15. Tomatoes and corn. At first glance, tomatoes and corn seem like a perfect match. They're both warm season crops. They both love full sun. And they often need similar watering schedules. But underneath the surface, this pairing creates several hidden problems. The biggest issue is pests. Tomatoes and corn both attract one of the most destructive garden insects, the corn earworm. What many gardeners don't realize is that this insect is also known as the tomato fruitworm. Instead of attacking just one crop, it happily moves between both. If you grow tomatoes and corn side by side, you're essentially creating an all-you-can-eat buffet for these pests. Disease is another concern. Both crops can suffer from fungal infections when airflow is limited. Since corn grows tall and dense, it can reduce air circulation around tomato plants, increasing humidity and making fungal diseases more likely. A much better companion for tomatoes would be basil, marigolds, or onions, which may help reduce certain pests while improving overall garden diversity. Keeping tomatoes and corn separated is one of the simplest ways to reduce insect pressure before it becomes a serious problem. Number 14. Onions and beans. Beans are known for improving soil by working with beneficial bacteria that help add usable nitrogen. This natural process makes beans valuable companions for many vegetables, but onions belong to the allium family, and alliums don't always get along with legumes. Onions, garlic, chives, and shallots can slow the growth of beans by interfering with the beneficial bacteria around their roots. The result? Beans may grow more slowly and produce fewer pods than expected. Many beginner gardeners plant onions along the edges of raised beds filled with beans, thinking they're saving space. Unfortunately, this often reduces the bean harvest without any obvious warning signs. Instead, grow onions near carrots, lettuce, beets, or brassicas, and give your beans their own section where they can thrive without competition. Sometimes, giving vegetables a little distance is the best way to help both succeed. Number 13. Cucumbers and potatoes. Both cucumbers and potatoes are popular choices in home gardens, but planting them together can create more problems than benefits. The biggest issue is disease. Potatoes are vulnerable to blight, one of the most feared diseases in vegetable gardening. Once blight appears, it spreads quickly under the right conditions. Cucumbers are also susceptible to several fungal diseases, especially when airflow is poor and humidity remains high. Growing these crops close together can increase the chances of disease spreading through your garden. There's another issue as well. Potatoes are heavy feeders. They consume large amounts of nutrients from the soil. Cucumbers also require fertile, nutrient-rich soil to produce healthy vines and abundant fruit. When grown together, both plants compete heavily for those same nutrients, leaving neither at its full potential. A smarter choice is to plant cucumbers near beans or peas, while giving potatoes their own dedicated space with proper crop rotation each year. Separating these two vegetables won't just reduce disease, it can also improve the harvest from both crops. Before we move on, here's something many gardeners don't realize. Just because two vegetables can physically fit in the same raised bed doesn't mean they should grow together. Some plants compete for nutrients. Some release natural chemicals that slow the growth of nearby plants. Others simply attract the same pests, turning a small problem into a garden-wide infestation. That's exactly what makes the next mistake so surprising. Number 12. Fennel and almost everything. If there's one vegetable that prefers to grow alone, it's fennel. Unlike most garden vegetables, fennel doesn't play well with its neighbors. It releases natural compounds into the soil through its roots, a process known as allelopathy. These compounds can interfere with the growth of many nearby vegetables. Tomatoes, beans, peppers, carrots, and even some herbs may become weaker or slower growing when planted too close. Many gardeners assume fennel belongs in the middle of a mixed vegetable bed because it looks attractive and attracts beneficial insects. And while it does bring pollinators like ladybugs and hoverflies into the garden, its underground effects often outweigh those benefits. The best solution is simple. Treat fennel like a plant with its own personal space. Grow it in a separate bed or even in a container where its roots won't interfere with the rest of your garden. Sometimes the healthiest garden isn't about squeezing every plant together. It's about giving each one the space it needs. Number 11. Peppers and fennel peppers are one of the most rewarding crops for home gardeners. Whether you're growing sweet bell peppers or spicy jalapenos, healthy plants need steady growth, rich soil, and plenty of sunlight. But all of that can be disrupted if fennel is growing nearby. Just like tomatoes and beans, peppers can also be affected by fennel's allelopathic chemicals. Instead of producing strong stems and heavy fruit, pepper plants may grow more slowly and appear less vigorous. The frustrating part is that many gardeners don't recognize the cause. They blame fertilizer, watering, or weather when the real problem is sitting only a few feet away. A much better companion for peppers is basil. Basil doesn't compete aggressively, and many gardeners believe it helps reduce certain insect problems while making better use of garden space. Marigolds are another excellent choice because they attract pollinators and may discourage some unwanted pests. When it comes to peppers, choosing the right neighbor can make the difference between a few peppers and baskets full of them. Number 10. Carrots and dill. At first, this pairing sounds completely harmless. After all, carrots and dill belong to the same plant family, but that's exactly where the problem begins. When dill matures and begins flowering, it can interfere with nearby carrot plants. The two can cross-pollinate if you're saving seed, leading to poor quality carrot seed for future planting. Even before that happens, mature dill can compete for sunlight and nutrients, especially in smaller raised beds. Young dill is usually fine around carrots. The trouble starts when gardeners allow dill to grow large without giving either plant enough space. There's another hidden issue. Because they're closely related, carrots and dill often attract the same insect pests, including carrot rust flies and certain caterpillars. When both crops grow side by side, those pests can spread more easily through the bed. A smarter approach is to harvest dill while it's still young, or grow mature dill in another section of the garden where it can still attract beneficial insects without competing directly with your carrots. Good companion planting isn't just about what you plant, it's also about when and where you plant it. Now we're entering the top half of our countdown. These next combinations are responsible for some of the biggest gardening failures because the problems often stay hidden until it's too late. Your plants may look perfectly healthy for weeks. Then suddenly disease spreads, pests multiply, or the harvest is far smaller than expected. Let's continue. Number 9. Potatoes and tomatoes. At first, planting potatoes and tomatoes together seems like a smart idea. They're both members of the nightshade family. They enjoy similar temperatures, need fertile soil, and are planted around the same time. But that's exactly what makes them a risky combination. Because they're closely related, they share many of the same diseases. The biggest threat is late blight, the disease responsible for the Irish potato famine in the 1840s. If late blight infects your potatoes, it can quickly spread to nearby tomato plants. And if it starts on your potato crop may be next. Instead of losing one harvest, you could lose both. These plants also attract many of the same pests, including aphids and Colorado potato beetles. Growing them side by side makes it much easier for those insects to move from one crop to another. Professional gardeners usually separate tomatoes and potatoes as much as possible. Many also rotate their planting locations every year to reduce disease buildup in the soil. If you want healthier plants and fewer surprises, keeping these two crops apart is one of the smartest decisions you can make. Number 8. Cabbage and strawberries. This pairing surprises many gardeners. After all, strawberries stay low to the ground, while cabbage grows upright. It looks like they should fit together perfectly. Unfortunately, appearances can be misleading. Cabbage is a heavy feeder. It needs plenty of nitrogen to produce large, healthy heads. Strawberries also need consistent nutrients to produce sweet, juicy berries throughout the season. When these crops grow too close together, they compete for the same resources, but nutrients aren't the only problem. Dense cabbage leaves reduce airflow around nearby strawberry plants. Poor air circulation creates the perfect environment for fungal diseases like gray mold, especially during wet weather. There's another issue. Cabbage often attracts pests such as cabbage worms and cabbage loopers. While these insects don't usually feed on strawberries, a crowded garden filled with pests is never a healthy environment. A much better companion for strawberries is lettuce, spinach, or bush beans. These plants compete less aggressively and help make better use of available space. Sometimes the best garden layout isn't about fitting the most plants into one bed. It's about giving every crop the conditions it needs to thrive. Number 7. Pumpkins and potatoes. Pumpkins are famous for their long, fast-growing vines. Potatoes spend most of their growing season quietly developing underground. Since one grows above the soil and the other below it, many gardeners assume they're compatible. But they can actually create several problems for each other. First, pumpkins spread quickly. Their large leaves and vines can cover potato plants, reducing sunlight and limiting airflow. That extra shade traps moisture, increasing the risk of fungal diseases. Second, potatoes are highly susceptible to blight. Once disease appears, the dense pumpkin vines make it harder to notice the early warning signs. By the time you discover the problem, it may already be spreading through the garden. Harvest time creates another challenge. Digging potatoes while pumpkin vines are covering the bed often damages stems, roots, or developing fruit. Instead of helping each other, these crops simply get in each other's way. A better strategy is to give pumpkins plenty of room along the edge of the garden where their vines can spread freely while keeping potatoes in a separate, easy-to-maintain bed. A little extra planting in spring can save a lot of frustration at harvest time. We've reached the final stretch. At this point, we're no longer talking about small gardening mistakes. These next combinations can reduce harvests, slow plant growth, and create problems that many gardeners spend an entire season trying to fix. Let's continue with number 6. Asparagus and onions. Asparagus is unlike most vegetables in your garden. Instead of planting it every year, a healthy asparagus bed can continue producing delicious spears for 15 to 20 years. Because it's a long-term crop, choosing the right neighbors is especially important. One of the worst companions for asparagus is the onion family. That includes onions, garlic, shallots, and chives. These plants compete aggressively for nutrients and moisture in the upper layers of the soil, where young asparagus roots are actively growing. Asparagus also prefers to remain undisturbed, but onions are harvested every season, which means regular digging and soil disturbance around the bed. Over time, this can stress the asparagus crowns and reduce future production. A much better companion for asparagus is parsley or flowering plants that attract beneficial insects, helping control asparagus beetles naturally. Remember, when you plant asparagus, you're planning for the next 2 decades, not just the next growing season. Number 5. Cucumbers and strong aromatic herbs. This mistake catches many gardeners off guard. You've probably heard that herbs are great companions for vegetables, and in many cases that's true. But not every herb is a good neighbor. Strong aromatic herbs such as sage and sometimes rosemary can compete with cucumber plants for moisture and root space, especially in smaller raised beds or containers. Cucumbers grow incredibly fast. Their vines need constant access to water and nutrients to produce crisp, juicy fruit. When nearby herbs develop dense root systems, cucumbers may struggle to keep up. Some gardeners also notice slower vine growth when these herbs are planted too close. Instead, pair cucumbers with beans, peas, or nasturtiums. These companions make better use of the available space and can even help attract pollinators, leading to improved fruit production. The lesson here is simple. Just because two plants are healthy on their own doesn't always mean they're healthy together. Number 4. Corn and brassicas. Corn is one of the tallest crops in the vegetable garden. Brassicas include vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, kale, and Brussels sprouts. At first glance, they seem like a perfect match. Tall corn could even provide a little afternoon shade. But there's a hidden problem. Brassicas are heavy feeders. Corn is also one of the hungriest plants you can grow. Both crops demand large amounts of nitrogen throughout the season. When planted together, they compete for the same nutrients, often leaving both crops underperforming. Corn may produce smaller ears. Brassicas may develop loose heads or slower growth. There's another issue. The dense corn rows reduce airflow, creating humid conditions where fungal diseases can spread more easily through brassica leaves. Professional growers usually give each of these crops its own dedicated growing area and enrich the soil with compost before planting. Healthy soil can only support so much demand. When two heavy feeders compete side by side, neither plant reaches its full potential. We've reached the top 3. These are the companion planting mistakes that experienced gardeners see over and over again. Avoid them, and you'll give your garden a much better chance of producing healthy, productive crops all season long. Number 3, tomatoes and the cabbage family. Tomatoes are among the most popular vegetables in home gardens. Brassicas such as cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, and kale are just as common. Since both are garden favorites, many beginners grow them side by side. Unfortunately, that's not always the best idea. Brassicas are heavy feeders that consume large amounts of nutrients, especially nitrogen, during the early stages of growth. Tomatoes also need rich, fertile soil to develop strong vines and produce large, flavorful fruit. When planted too close together, both crops compete for nutrients, often reducing overall performance. There's another concern. Large cabbage leaves can limit airflow around tomato plants, especially in smaller raised beds. Poor airflow creates the perfect conditions for fungal diseases, particularly during humid summer weather. Instead, grow tomatoes near basil, parsley, or marigolds, and give brassicas their own section of the garden where they have plenty of room to grow. A little planning before planting can prevent months of frustration later. Number 2, beans and garlic or onions. Earlier in this video, we talked about onions and beans, but this mistake is so common that it deserves another reminder. Beans rely on beneficial bacteria around their roots to capture nitrogen from the air and enrich the soil. Members of the onion family, including garlic, onions, shallots, and chives, can interfere with this natural relationship when grown too closely. As a result, bean plants may become smaller, weaker, and less productive. Many gardeners don't notice the problem because the plants still survive. They simply never reach their full potential. Instead, grow beans with corn, cucumbers, or carrots. These companions work together much more effectively and help create a balanced garden ecosystem. Sometimes the biggest harvest comes from simply giving each plant the right neighbor. Number 1, mint and almost everything. This final entry might surprise you. Mint isn't harmful because of disease. It isn't harmful because of pests. It's harmful because it grows too well. Mint spreads aggressively through underground runners. Given enough time, it can quickly invade nearby beds, stealing water, nutrients, and growing space from almost every vegetable around it. Many gardeners plant one small mint seedling in the corner of a raised bed. A year later, they're wondering why mint has taken over half the garden. Once established, removing it can be incredibly difficult. That's why experienced gardeners almost always grow mint in a container rather than directly in the ground. Doing so keeps its roots contained while still allowing you to enjoy fresh leaves throughout the season. Sometimes the biggest gardening mistake isn't planting the wrong companion. It's planting a plant that refuses to stay where you put it. Before you head out to your garden, here are a few simple rules that can save you from many common planting mistakes. First, avoid planting two heavy feeders right next to each other. They'll compete for nutrients and often produce smaller harvests. Second, improve airflow whenever possible. Proper spacing helps reduce fungal diseases and keeps leaves dry after rain or watering. Third, rotate crop families every year. Moving tomatoes, potatoes, peppers, and other related crops to a new location, each season helps prevent diseases from building up in the soil. And finally, remember that companion planting is a helpful guide, not a strict rule. Your climate, soil, watering habits, and garden size all play a role. Observe your plants, take notes, and learn from each growing season. The best gardeners never stop experimenting. A successful vegetable garden isn't just about choosing the right plants, it's about choosing the right neighbors. By avoiding these 15 common companion planting mistakes, you'll reduce pests, improve airflow, minimize disease, and give every crop the best chance to thrive. Small changes in where you plant today can lead to healthier plants and bigger harvests tomorrow. If you found this guide helpful, let us know which vegetable pairing surprised you the most. And if there's another gardening topic you'd like us to cover, leave your suggestion in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next garden.